time to share with you all about our Tuscany and San Marino Sojourn program happening next April and early May of 2025. Let's roll right into it. So first of all, a couple of words about Wheel and Anchor and who we are and what we're all about for those of our members who are new. If you've not participated in a trip or in a webinar before, I just want to say a couple of things about Wheel and Anchor. The idea of Wheel and Anchor came about after I spent the better part of 30 years organizing trips for Canadians to all points on the globe. And essentially what I found was if you manage to get a bunch of people together who have a like-minded view of adventure and of discovery and learning about new cultures and traditions and also enjoying great food and beverages and all the rest that goes along with it. If you get those people together in a group, you have a great time. And when we say in a group, we really foster the idea of our members connecting with one another. In fact, I was just discussing with some of my colleagues earlier today about resuming our events in a couple of different places around Canada this summer. So watch out for that. We want to our members to really come away not only with a great experience of having visited some great places around the world, but also connecting with people who, may end up being, lifelong friends. And that's happened in a lot of cases on our Wheel and Anchor trips. And so getting an opportunity to become connected to your fellow travelers, not to mention to the people that we meet in destination and having you really experience at a slower pace. That's also what these Sojourn programs are about. And I'll explain that in just a moment. That is what our philosophy is for our members here at Wheel and Anchor. In order to accomplish all that, we have a great team of people that works together with me. So by way of a quick introduction, my name is Gordon Drager. I'm the founder of Wheel and Anchor. I'm a absolute passionate traveler, to say the least. I'm constantly on the road. I'm just heading off on a research mission to Central Asia in a couple of days to work out a brand new itinerary for our members that I'm very excited about. So I'm the person that comes up with the ideas, and together with the rest of the folks on the screen and some others, we pull together these trips. The person who is most important for you to know is Paula, our lead trip specialist, who is the one who is typically on the other end of the phone when you dial our number, and is there to answer questions and get you all excited and signed up for any of our trips. So that's a quick overview of our team here at Wheel and Anchor. Today, we're going to take you on a little journey by way of a few photos and some explanation around Tuscany and San Marino. This is where we're headed next spring. This destination, let's face it, Italy is I think, as a country as a whole, our most requested destination. Everybody wants to go to Italy, and people want to go back and back and back to Italy and discover new parts of it. And so on this trip, we're going to talk specifically about Tuscany and San Marino. So as I always like to do at the beginning of our webinars, is explain to you a little bit about the geography of what we're talking about. Everybody knows Italy, the boot of Europe. And Florence is up here in the central northern part of the country. And that is the beginning part of the tour where we will fly into. And we'll spend, in fact, the first 5 nights in Florence exploring the city itself, which has so much to offer. And 5 nights barely scratches the surface, quite honestly, in terms of what you could see in and right in and around Florence. And from there, we'll head overland through the beautiful hilly countryside of central Tuscany on our way to Cortona, which is one of the most celebrated hilltop towns. We'll spend another 5 nights here exploring nearby cities like Siena, Pienza, which you may not have heard of before, but ended up being one of the favorite stops of our members on past trips. Montepulciano, familiar particularly to those who enjoy wine. So we'll do all that from Cortona. And then finally, the last leg, we're going to head up to San Marino, which is this little tiny country. In fact, the 5th smallest in the world that will be our base for the last 3 nights. And we'll explore a little bit of that tiny little, and the oldest republic in the world as well. And the area surrounding that, which is actually not Tuscany anymore, but just the next province over, Emilia-Romagna. So that is the geographical overview of our trip. Let me just explain right from the beginning what is a sojourn, because we have a number of our trips that are called sojourns, and these all of our trips fall into different categories as it relates to the pace of the trip and how it runs and sort of what's included. We have our live away trips, which are longer stay, 2 weeks in a particular destination, sometimes broken down into 1 week segments. And you can do 2 weeks or 4 weeks or a longer stay. And then we have our experiential trips, which are sightseeing trips where, you tend to cover a lot more ground. You stay a couple of nights or a few nights in each place. And that's great for areas of the world where there isn't much merit to spending a lot more time, or there isn't that much interest. And then our sojourn programs fall kind of in the middle. And this is because my personal feeling is that if you spend 5 nights in a place, you feel far more acquainted with it, far more in touch with it. You feel a little bit a sense like you really lived there, as opposed to a lot of tours where, if you just spent a night or two there, you can't really say that you've developed any kind of a connection to the place. So we run sojourn trips in Italy, also in France, and in Spain. And, because I think that it merits, again, spending a bit longer, having more time on your own to be able to explore is such an important part of the travel experience, even in an organized travel experience like the ones that we have here at Wheel and Anchor. So, all right, getting into the day-by-day itinerary. First of all, we'll arrive, of course, in Florence, quite easily accessible. You have to, obviously, there's no direct flights from Canada to Florence, but with a quick hop in Frankfurt or Amsterdam, there's various connections you can make, and you'll be in this incredible city, which is the whole city was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site back in the early 80s. And in fact, it dates back to the century before Christ, an ancient city. And I think unequivocally say it's my favorite city in Italy. It is absolutely incredible. The architecture, the cuisine, the people are lovely there. And of course, the works of art. Florence is reputed to have something like a third of the greatest art treasures in the world reside within this city. It's an amazing place. You'll arrive in, be transferred right to your hotel. This is a spot that we've used consistently over the last couple of years. It's a lovely little art design hotel right in the middle of the city, about a 5 to 7 minute walk from Duomo, which is the massive Cathedral of Florence that you see pictured here in the center. And so on the arrival day, you'll be, as I say, brought to the hotel, have time to relax. And as always, we don't plan a lot for the first day, maybe a little icebreaker, a little cocktail party for everybody to get together and get yourself oriented to the immediate area. This is a city to get to wander around and get lost in, quite honestly, because you can't get that far lost. You've got the River Arno that you can see pictured in the foreground here, and the mountains in the background. So you can certainly get lost, but you'll also have lots of help to find your way back, in fact, if you do. So our first full day, we're going to take in some of the highlights of Florence. I mentioned the cathedral. We typically actually don't make a tour into the cathedral, not because it's not worth it, but there tends to be massive lineups. And so we take you by it. We have a lovely local guide, Angela, who's been working with us for a number of years. And she is an absolute wealth of knowledge and will explain the key sites and how they evolved. I mean, how Florence Cathedral was built is a story in and of itself. The wealth of the Medici family that largely contributed to constructing this incredible building. We'll, of course, wander through different streets and understand a little bit about how this city came to be. And of course, as I mentioned, the Medici family was one of the most important sort of founding family of Florence, and their role in banking and all the rest of it. And Angela will do an incredible job of sort of painting the picture, if I can use that euphemism here, about what Florence is all about on a wonderful half-day trip that will be all on foot. Florence is a walking city. This is a city that, in fact, the interior, the old town, of the city is that the vehicular traffic is restricted to residents and delivery vehicles only. So it really cuts down on the amount of traffic, but it also means that it is best explored on foot. So we'll have a great half day, and then you'll have plenty of time to explore on your own. You'll get ideas of places to go for dinner in the evening. Of course, on that first day, we'll have our welcome dinner, but some of the other days we'll just have lunch included. And it's worth researching where you go and have dinner. We have a number of recommendations of places that our members have dined at in the past, that I've dined at, that are absolutely incredible. And honestly, everything from pizza to fine dining in Florence, you can never go too far wrong. The next day, Angela will take us to Uffizi, which is, as noted in the caption here, one of the top 10 art collections in the world. It is a incredible, incredible gallery. It's not as large as the Louvre, for example, in Paris, or the British Museum, or any of the larger museums. But in terms of the the quality of artworks contained within this gallery, it is incredible. It's also overwhelming. I mean, it's not huge, but it does still consist of 45 halls. So if you really want to take the time to go through on your own, you'll literally, one day wouldn't be enough. And again, the importance of having Angela, and she is incredible, because not only does she take you through and explain the significance of some of the more notable works. I mean, obviously you've got works by Botticelli and Giotto, and other famous Renaissance masters that are located within here. But it's telling the story of how the pieces relate to one another and what the story is behind how they came into be. That's really what I think is incredible about the Uffizi, because I've had lots of people come back and say, oh, I visited the Uffizi and there's amazing stuff, but a lot of people don't understand what the art means or why it was created in the context of it. And that's why having a guided trip with us is so, so important. We'll have a wonderful lunch nearby afterwards, and then there'll be ample time to explore Florence more on your own. We're going to also do a side trip to one of many hilltop towns that we're going to visit on this tour through Tuscany, the first of which being San Gimignano, yet another town that is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. There's many of them. There's many of them throughout Tuscany, as you can imagine. And San Gimignano is sort of affectionately referred to as the Manhattan of Tuscany. You can see 13 towers that rise out of the skyline, for lack of a better word. There used to be as many as over 70 that dawned the skyline of San Gimignano, and this is what the wealthy families of the town did in order to sort of show off their economic power, is by building towers, one trying to beat the other. It's funny how you can draw the parallels between cities today and their desire to go higher and higher with the skyscrapers. But of course, this was largely came together in the 14th century. So, but the ideology behind it is still there. So once again, we'll spend a good half a day exploring San Gimignano, a lovely, lovely town. We have another super spot that we stop in for lunch. And then there's plenty of time to be back and enjoy a little bit of free time in Florence in the evening for the rest of the day. We'll then spend another day at another of Florence's finest art centers. And this is the Galleria dell'Accademia, which of course is most famous for Michelangelo's David. You can see the head of David pictured here. You'll see his statue actually at many places around Florence, but of course the original is only here in the Accademia. And so once again, we're going to go first thing in the morning with Angela to be able to uncover and get a good look before the crowds descend on the Accademia. It's very close by. It's only about a 10-minute walk from your hotel, and we'll explore what the Renaissance masters, including Michelangelo, did. Not just this particular statue, but the many, many other ones there. They have a really cool hall of musical instruments, which is actually one of the other parts of the gallery. And people come specifically and only to see David, but there's so much more to it than that. And that's where, again, the benefit of having that local knowledge is so makes such a difference in this experience in Florence. We'll then, after 5 nights in Florence, wave goodbye and make our way to the southeast, heading towards Cortona. And this is a lovely view of Cortona, which sits in the Valley of Chiana, in the very southernmost part of Tuscany, right on the border to Umbria, actually. And there are many hilltop towns in Tuscany, and we're going to visit a couple of them. As I mentioned, San Gimignano previously, that we're going to see from Florence. But Cortona is, has a charm unto itself, and the views looking out as you walk around the various cobblestone streets are really incredible. So we're going to spend 5 nights again here in Cortona, which gives us time to take in the town itself. It's not a huge town. In fact, there's only one flat street in the whole town, which is the Via Nazionale, the main pedestrian street, with a bunch of shops and restaurants and galleries, and it's really a lovely spot. But it's important to get out, and you have to certainly put those steps in up and down, because, as I mentioned, there's pretty much only one flat street in the whole town, and everything else is up and down. But it's really worth it to explore around, because the city has an Etruscan heritage. In fact, it is surrounded by these Etruscan walls that are unique, I think, amongst the hilltop towns in Tuscany. So I should mention as well, on the way to Cortona, we added in this year a stop in Arezzo, which is another Etruscan town, hilltop town that one can see on the way. It's actually the capital of the province, and it's going to be it was a much loved stop on previous visits, so we decided to put that back into the trip as well. Cortona is a short ride away from Siena, and Siena, next to Florence, is perhaps the most picturesque and interesting art history town in Italy. It is the centerpiece of it all is, of course, the Piazza del Campo, which is considered to be one of the most beautiful piazzas in all of Italy. And the entire city, which again sits on a hill, is surrounded by a 1,000-year-old wall that is partly actually still intact, and forms this, the fortress that made up the city. So we will visit the Duomo in Siena, which by some accounts may even be more intricate on the inside, more elaborate than the one in Florence. Certainly back in the day, they rivaled each other, even though they're only a little over an hour apart by car. But they are two of the most striking cathedrals that you may visit quite honestly anywhere in the world. It's worth spending the time, but there'll be also ample time to check out the town itself. You might go up the Campanile. You can walk all the way up to the top of the tower. That gives you an incredible view over the surrounding rolling hillsides of Siena and the countryside. It's really a lovely outing to Siena, and it's a must-see destination. Pienza, on the other hand, is a town that not many people know about, and we had done this on a previous trip. We offered this as an optional tour out to Pienza. A number of people signed up for it, and everybody came back saying, wow, this is a city. And, the picture doesn't really even do it justice. You just see a bunch of buildings at the top of a hill. But it actually has quite a history, because a pope back in the 15th century designed this city meticulously to embody the principles of humanism and urban planning. So it's one of the earliest urban planned towns that you'll find in Italy, and certainly in Tuscany. And so it has really lovely streets and buildings, and it's not a far trip from Cortona, but a nice little outing. It makes a nice half-day experience with again a delicious Tuscan lunch. You'll be craving them as each day goes past, and then again time to head back to Cortona to enjoy that town as well in the afternoon and evening. Of course, Tuscany is synonymous with wine, and so we will have a day where we spend most of the day relaxing, enjoying Cortona at our own pace. There's a number of great walks that you can do around the town, which I highly recommend. There's a monastery that one can walk to. It's about a good half an hour walk into the countryside. But next thing you know, you're completely outside of the built up area of this fortified town, and you're in the quiet countryside in the forest. Where they have a great monastery that I recall visiting on one of my first visits to Cortona. Um, and later on that day, we will head off to do a wine tasting. We'll probably have tasted at least a few glasses of Tuscan wines up to this point, but visiting San Luciano dei Vini Toscana, which is one of the many family-run vineyards in the area, is quite an experience because you can see the proud history and tradition that goes into winemaking in Tuscany. It's no wonder that Tuscan wines are revered all around the world. You've probably heard of the super Tuscan wines. But there are so many just, for lack of a better word, ordinary winemakers that produce fantastic products. And we'll get a chance to explore that. We'll have a great pairing of wines with, local fare like bruschetta and, all of the different charcuterie that Tuscany is known for. So this is a lovely and much appreciated afternoon and evening. And after a few glasses of wine, always makes for a good sleep at the end. We'll do one more full day excursion from Cortona out to Montepulciano. Again, for our wine connoisseurs, you will undoubtedly be familiar with the wines that originate from this region of Montepulciano. This is a larger town than Cortona, but it's situated over in another valley called Val d'Orcia. And so you get great views from the town. There's an incredible cellar that we can visit while we're wandering around the town. Of course, the cathedral, the Piazza Grande, and once again, a phenomenal lunch. What I find interesting is in talking about these various hilltop towns and showing pictures of them. The pictures hardly even do them justice because, you look at one, you think, well, one town looks like the other, and yet they're so different in character and in culture, and in the history and how they came to be that, you can't sort of stop at one. You have to, you get a craving to visit the next one and the next one, and what makes this different, and what views do they have, and what different architecture. I tell you, I've been fortunate to travel to many hilltop towns, and I personally can't get enough, which is why I think you'll have a great time visiting these ones on this particular itinerary. So once again, after a 5-night sojourn in Cortona, we'll head over to San Marino. And San Marino, as I mentioned at the outset, is a very quirky little place because it is the oldest republic in the world, which, again, a lot of people don't know. And that's part of the reason why it still exists as its own country at only 60 square kilometers. It's the 5th smallest country in the world. I mean, basically, that's like 7 by 8 kilometers, roughly. So you could walk quite easily from one side of the country to the other. We're going to be staying right in the middle in a quaint little hotel that is super well situated for us to be able to access Mount Titano here that you can see pictured with the fortress that is part of the fortifications that originally comprised the city back when there was nothing in the countryside around. So we'll have some great opportunity here for shopping, and not that we sort of necessarily promote shopping as an activity, but San Marino is actually also a duty-free zone. What's interesting, so people from other parts of Italy will drive right into San Marino just to pick up some some inexpensive goods and liquors and so on and so forth. In and around San Marino, we've got some lovely little villages, and one of the favorites, according to our host Mara, who I spoke with earlier today and just returned from this trip, said guests absolutely loved San Leo, which is, as I mentioned, San Marino is located in Emilia-Romagna, which is another province adjacent to Tuscany. And it has its own little countryside, like its own little hilltop towns. San Leo being one that was much loved by our guests. We'll go and taste some olive oil also synonymous with this region of Tuscany, and really get to know some of the countryside outside in and around San Marino. And finally, we have one more day that we're going to be visiting yet our last town on this itinerary, Santa Arcan. Some of these ones I have a hard time pronouncing. Sant'Arcangelo di Romagna, which is a lovely town. I was not able to get there personally on my last visit to the area, but once again, a beautiful little town that is in Emilia-Romagna. And here we'll take in a pasta making class, which, anytime we can do the hands-on experience of embracing some of these local cultural traditions like making pasta. Because once you've had original handmade pasta, and once you've made it yourself, you're going to go back home and you're going to think twice before heading down to Loblaws and buying the prepackaged stuff, because it just tastes so good. And it's actually remarkably easy to do. It's really a matter of deciding, which form of pasta that you want to make. Like, you can see a few of the different ones in the picture here. So this one was got rave reviews from our members this year, and I'm sure that you would enjoy it as well. And that will wrap up our 2-week adventure in Tuscany and San Marino. We made a few little tweaks to the program this year for next year's trip, but as I say, largely we got some very, very positive feedback. So we're excited to be bringing you the same program again next year. This trip, all of the details, as always, in our program itinerary, but just to give you some of the highlights, it's at the end of April, 23rd of April to the 6th of May. The pricing here in Canadian dollars that we've shown in for both twin sharing as well as single occupancy. Lots of inclusions here, all of the arrangements that we've talked about just now, that I won't go through in great detail. We have a wonderful local lunch or dinner every day. As many of you will know who participate in our trips, we put a lot of emphasis on having great culinary experiences all throughout. Some of them some of them more fine dining, but a lot of them, even sometimes the more local family-oriented places, are the ones where we have some of the most fun and the best food. So all of that is what's part of the program. The only thing that is extra, of course, is airfare and cancellation insurance or medical insurance. We can happily provide you quotes for both of those things. So that is what that's all about. For those that sign up early, we do have a limited number of spaces. This trip will have somewhere between 10 and 16 guests on it, a maximum of 16 members on this trip. And so we will only run it once next spring. So therefore, if you're interested, best to sign up early. And if you do that before the end of August, we've got a little bit of a saving that we get from our hotels by putting down deposits early, and we pass that on to you. So you get $200 off if you join us early. So I'm sure there's going to be questions about what this program entails, and I'm happy to take some of those now. Otherwise, please do drop a message to Paula, and she will be happy to answer any questions specific to your own interest in joining us on this tour. Do you have sound now? Maybe I'm going to go up with your connection. Is all good, Paula?
As his, yeah, sorry, Heather, you mentioned that the sound wasn't working. I assume that's all fixed because you've stayed online with us. So that or you're good at reading lips. But
yeah, exactly. But Paula, from your perspective, it was okay on the all good. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. I didn't see the note till just now, so
all good. I have a couple questions here that have come in from members, Gordon, that we're asking with regards to the weather at that time of year. Any specific packing suggestions?
I mean, nothing too specific. I mean, listen, we are in the prime of spring in this part of Europe, right? Spring comes earlier to central Italy than it does certainly at home. So here you're talking about daytime temperatures. They're going to be typically around 20 degrees plus or minus 4. So it could be, it's unlikely that it's going to be cooler than about 17, 18 degrees. Also unlikely that it's going to be warmer than 23 or 24. But then again, Reports have come back that the world is warming up. So if anything, it tends to be on the warmer side of things. In the evenings, it's cooler. Quite honestly, late April, early May is the absolute best time to go. It is the beginning of the high season as far as tourists concerned. Florence is busy all year round in the meantime. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's just it's a very highly sought after destination, but no specific requirements as far as um, packing is concerned. Just nice spring attire
Perfect. Thank you very much. And good walking shoes. I
and
think
good
that's
walking shoes. Always good walking shoes. Absolutely.
fabulous. Members are always asking about combinations. So do you want to touch on that, or do you want me to mention a couple of options?
About accommodation, sorry?
Uh, what did I just say?
You
About
said
combination. Sorry. Did I say
accommodation. Yes. Well, Paul, by all means, if you want to mention what we've got, I think this combines with our Southern Italian sojourn as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. So the Southern Italian Sojourn for Amalfi and Puglia is the 2 weeks prior, April 9th to the 22nd. And then there's a night overlap or gap. Sorry, not overlap. There's a night gap. And then the Tuscany and San Marino one. And I think that's, oh, and that's the only one that I'm
The
seeing.
only one that will be
Oh,
the
Sicily, but oh no, sorry. Yeah, that's the only one for this for Tuscany
yeah,
combination. That
exactly. And I do know that some of our members did combine these two trips because it's sort of a logical combo. First, do Southern Italy, as Paula just mentioned, Amalfi Coast. I'm staying near Sorrento and Puglia, and then you can, which is brilliant at the beginning of April because it's even warmer down in the south, and then you come up here and continue on for this trip here.
Perfect. I did have another member that was asking me, not on the webinar today, I don't think they're here with us right now, but was asking about San Marino
Mhm.
almost being too touristy. And I was wondering if you'd provide some insight when we created this program,
Yeah,
what drew
I,
you to San Marino in
Yeah,
addition?
I spoke to Mara specifically about that, and the interesting thing is that San Marino is touristy in the sense that, as I mentioned, it is a duty-free zone. So you have a lot of day trippers that will come from um, the Adriatic coast of Italy, from places like Rimini and the beach resorts up and down the Adriatic coast. So I mean, it's a busy place, but it's no busier than or I would say not as busy as Florence for that matter,
Yeah.
or Siena. There are a few places in Italy these days that aren't busy unless they're literally nondescript towns in the middle of nowhere. But I wouldn't call it more touristy than anywhere else.
Yeah, that almost like that's a bit of the local flavor of what's drawing the local tourists in as well, which is nice
Yeah, that
difference
makes it
compared
interesting.
to
You don't see San Marino on too many other itineraries, and that's why I thought. And again, and having spoken with our host Mara, she thought it was an absolute gem of our town. Our members shared that view. They really enjoyed their time and seeing a little place and visiting a country that ordinarily just wouldn't be on the map.
fabulous. Thank you for sharing that insight. Members can reach out to me via phone or email. Always love to hear from you and have a chat. And I have more information, additional information document, which I can share as well for those that would like to consider this for their plans next April.
Yes, we'd love to have you come along. As I say, it's our Italy trips are always among our most favored. So do call in, get any questions answered, and come join us for a little fun, a little great food, wine, and some incredible history and culture in Tuscany next year. Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate you taking the time to participate in our webinars as always. If you're interested, you can join us tomorrow. We have our newest Live Away program to Mallorca that I'm going to be presenting tomorrow at the same time, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until we see each other again, I say again, thank you and have yourselves a great rest of the day. Bye-bye for now.